Hey Josh.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad.
Good. I mean,
Right. So, with that in mind, I'd like to introduce you guys to Ila from I Spy Recruiting, and she is here to talk to you guys about the business of you and how to prepare for the transition from school to being a professional. So, with that
yeah,
in mind, I will turn it over.
excellent. Well, thanks for having me, Josh. So I am curious, most of you 2D, CG, illustrators, where's everybody? What's their focus? 3D. Awesome. Any other 3D, 2D, 2D, 2D? Storyboard. Nice. Okay. Any others? Okay, well, I want to introduce myself. My name is Ila, and my company is I Spy Recruiting, and I staff both freelance and full-time animation and design jobs. And there is no fee in working with me, so I'm just another resource out there to let you know about opportunities that you may not be aware of. I encourage you, when you're ready to look for work, feel free to send in to me and to all the other companies that you're interested in. Um, and in addition to being a recruiter, I'm also always looking at people's work, even on the fly. So I think as you move forward in this industry, you should always be aware that we are looking at your work, we're familiarizing ourselves with you before we ever make contact. So know that like whatever you put out into the world, you're going to have eyeballs on it. So always have your professional self moving forward from this moment on. Treat yourself, have your professional face on. So you can do all this other stuff on your sideline, but start to build the business of you as an artist and what you're going to pursue. Start to build that now and keep those separate. So a little bit about I Spy. Yeah, I do look at every single piece of material that does come through. And I do respond to every single person that does apply. So you can be assured that it's being looked at, and I will get back to you hopefully in a timely manner. You know, ebb and flow. Sometimes I'm completely slammed and it takes a little time, but I do look at everything. And once you're sort of in my system, you're always under active consideration. So there's some people that have applied to me. They'll hear from me immediately and I'll have something, or they'll hear from me 3 months, 6 months. I'll stay in touch with people for years, and you know, I might have an opportunity that might be appropriate. So anytime I do have a job that opens up, I go back through to people I've been in touch with and that have applied to I Spy Recruiting. So keep that in mind, and don't disappear on me like you, or with any of the companies as you move forward. Every time you have updates, it's about visibility, it's about staying in touch, it's about networking and keeping your latest and greatest out there. So a little bit about my story, and I think my path, you know, there's some nuggets in there, some advice that you can take with you. I've been doing this for a while, but when I started trying to find a job in the industry, it was before everything was online. It was before you could just, you know, sit at your desk and get all the information you needed. So research, research, research. There's no excuse as you move forward in this industry to really know what's going on, who the key players are, who's doing the work that inspires you, and to be able to connect with people now more than ever. It's so easy with social networks. So, you know, familiarize yourself with the industry. You should, you know, you can get newsletters to your inbox every day. You can read the trades. You can look at and see what's happening. You can look and see like who's ramping up, who's slowing down, what projects have been greenlit. back in the day when I had to do this, you literally had to go, you had to buy the trades, you had to read the trades, you had to make phone calls, you had to try and connect with people. It was so much harder then. So now, as you move through the industry, always make a best effort to make that personal connection and to know your facts and know who you're applying to and know the work that you're interested in. And I'd say now more than ever, especially with the pandemic and face-to-face is really not possible now. So you have to really put yourself at that advantage and put yourself ahead of the pack. So making those personal connections is really important. So through my research, through chatting with people, finding connections to connections to connections, I managed to find an internship opportunity. Has anybody here had internships yet? No? Yes? No? Yes? All right. Well, I recommend, oh, good. Hey, we got it. We have an intern. You have the opportunity to intern while you're in school. You'll also have the opportunity to potentially intern after you graduate. If you don't find that job immediately, internships are invaluable. And it doesn't have to be the perfect fit. It doesn't have to be the perfect opportunity. It's really just about exposure, getting familiar, getting yourself out there. And you know, you might be surprised. Yeah, you weren't necessarily interested in architecture, but there was this internship available. And, opening yourself up to opportunities, that's really what it's about right now, saying yes and meeting as many people as possible and exposing yourself to as much as possible. So I managed to get an internship. My focus in school was actually live action and film. And, I had worked in it briefly, and I realized I was very disenchanted with live action. And I quickly realized that, your experience in school doesn't really mirror the experience in the real world. So I had this internship opportunity to work in stop motion animation, which was nothing that I had studied and not even really on my rate. I mean, I knew the stop motion from all the holiday specials, which we all loved. So that was my experience with stop motion and my exposure to it. But it was a chance to say, yeah, okay, let me get a little bit more experience under my belt. Let me try something new. And an internship is a great way to do that. So I got an internship working in stop motion, and lo and behold, at the time, none of us knew what it was going to be, but it was Nightmare Before Christmas. So it was an amazing internship to have. But that was, none of us knew what Nightmare was going to turn into. And I had gotten that internship again through networking, through a friend of a friend of a friend. So you never know where those connections are, and always just, the more connections you can make, the more you keep yourself open, the opportunities are there. So I got an internship on Nightmare Before Christmas. It was amazing. Internships are really the pathway to a job opportunity. When you're in the internship, it's probably not going to be the most glamorous work. It's obviously not going to be exactly what you wanted to do. But this is when you show off all of your soft skills. This is when we see who you are as a team player. Do you show up on time? Do you communicate with the team? Do you find things to do as when you run out of, the to-do list? Are you resourceful? This is all the stuff that really, yes, in addition to you being an amazing artist, all of that counts when you're in the working world. So working on Nightmare, it wasn't glamorous. It was doing film runs. It was cleaning up sets that were, caked with Vaseline and totally messy work. It was fetching Henry Selick's muffin every morning, and it had to be perfect on his desk no later than 8 a.m. But doing all of those things and doing them well really showed the team that, yeah, I was worth bringing on when the opportunity presented itself. So lo and behold, while I was working on Nightmare as an intern, a PA position opened up. And I will tell you now, companies, they don't like to post jobs because it's overwhelming to go through all the reels and resumes. A lot of the times that's when they'll hire a recruiter to help find people. So the first person that studios will go to, they'll check in with their network. They'll look at the interns that they've already worked with. They'll hire the people that have already proven themselves. So, or they'll ask people inside the company, who do you recommend? Do you have anybody that you've worked with? Do you have any former classmates that you really enjoyed working with? So this is how it all starts in terms of the job search. So I managed to get a paid job working on Nightmare, which was amazing. And I actually got promoted to coordinator, and I was learning so much, learning about the feature world, learning about stop motion. And it was great. We had the premiere and we were like, yay, and party on. It was great. And, you know, the film came out, it was over. And that was also my reality check of like, oh, okay, I have to find the next job. So as you move through this industry, really remembering that, yes, you're totally invested in the job that you're in, but to always be on the lookout, always keep yourself open. Don't bury your head in the sand and ignore the world around you, because there's going to be that time when all of a sudden you have to look around and potentially find your next opportunity. So at that point, my network was a little bit bigger. I now was established in the world of stop motion. I now knew all these amazing stop motion animators, and I had the next level of relationships. So talking to people, meeting with people, having coffee with people, I learned that there was another show that was just ramping up that a lot of people were kind of starting to move to. And it was a Saturday morning kids show called Bump in the Night. Does anybody remember that show? No, I will tell you, if you watch it, it's super creepy. And my kids, I've shown it to my kids and they're totally like wigged out by it. But it was, it was a Saturday morning kids show that was on ABC, and they were ramping up. And I, through a connection on Nightmare, I managed to get an interview, and I managed to get hired working on this new show called Bump in the Night. And things were great. It's moving along at Bump. While I was there, there was somebody who the executive producer seemed to have that career path that I thought, oh, now I'm in production, I'm a coordinator, I'm moving and grooving. Maybe this is the direction I'm headed in. Maybe I want to be an executive producer. Her name was Rose, and we keep in touch to this day. She became somebody that really, she became my mentor. She really became that person that I had a connection with, that I could talk to. I could get her advice on things, and she kind of became, like my Yoda. So, and mentors aren't guaranteed. They're cultivated over time. But as you, again, start to move through your career, maybe start to think like, okay, what path am I on? Who has that job that I might see myself growing into? And start to cultivate that relationship. Find a mentor. You might have more than one, but find that person that you can kind of, count on. Likewise, as you move forward in the industry, you can mentor somebody as well. So it's really important though to work on those relationships and be respectful of those relationships. Don't abuse it. Don't abuse their time. Be generous in terms of if you take them out, pick up the tab, you know, but these are relationships that are really important too. So while I was at Bump, Rose became my mentor. And again, she's somebody to this day I stay in touch with. I have a few mentors that I've had over the years. So everything was going well at Bump in the Night. Few years in, moving and grooving, and they had a company-wide meeting, and we saw these people with suits at the front of the studio, which in our industry, you rarely see people wearing suits. So alarm bells went off. We were a little like, ooh, who are these people in suits? And Disney, they were people from Disney, and they said, well, Disney just bought ABC, so we are replacing all of the Saturday morning programming with Disney programming, and the show is canceled. Take your stuff and go home. There's security at the front, so just take your stuff and get out. And it was that sudden and that shocking, but it was also another reality check of like, oh, you know, stuff happens. You know, shows get canceled, movies get shelved, budgets get cut, mergers happen, acquisitions. You know, layoffs are definitely a reality of our industry. There are incredible highs, there are incredible lows, but remembering to really take care of yourself and remember that you are a business first and foremost. And as I've said, always rely, you know, totally invest in the company that you're in, but not to forget what's happening in the world around you. So, you know, all of us could, you know, we were done. That was it. Show was over. I did manage to take a ball and socket puppet and shove it down my pants and walk out though, because I was like not going to leave without some memorabilia of that show. But, you know, here we were all out on the street again. So at that time, you know, there were some this was hardcore stop motion people. They had been on Gumby, they had been on Nightmare, some had been done James and the Giant Peach, they were on Bump in the Night. Again, I'm going to date myself, but this was early times of when CG animation, CG was just up and coming. So there were some animators that were being contacted by a company that said, listen, we're doing CG. We're happy to train you on the software because nobody had done it really before. There were no schools that did CG. We can train you. And for some of those hardcore stop motion people, they said, you know what? Keep myself open to a new opportunity, add a new tool to my toolbox. Yeah, I'm a stop motion person at heart, but it's still animation. This is just a slight pivot. So some of those people went over to that company. That company was Pixar, just when it was kind of up and going. So a bunch of those stop motion people were original animators at Pixar. There were some animators that said, you know what? Okay, there's the layoff. I've had this personal piece that's been brewing in my head. Like, I'm an artist first and foremost. I'm gonna create something. I'm gonna make my mark. And some of them did their own personal films. Actually, a couple of those actually went on to be nominated for Academy Shorts. So, you know, keeping yourself to a new opportunity, and then also checking in with yourself as the artist. Am I still doing what I want to do? Do I have something that I want to put out into the world? Create. It's really important. So some of those people did their own personal shorts. I saved for a rainy day, which you should always do. Save some, spend some. And I thought to myself, you know what? I just need a break. and I went traveling for a little bit. When I came back, you know, getting the lay of the land, meeting with people, talking with people. One of them was Rose, who I met up with again. And, you know, she was helping me tweak my resume, and she said, you know, there's, I know somebody who knows somebody. Let me give you a couple names of people. You can use my name as reference. I called one of those people that Rose suggested. They were working on there was a little bit further south in the Bay. There was another company that was starting up that was, had a film that was greenlit. And I spoke to the woman in recruiting and I said, hey, I'm a production coordinator. I'd love to work with you. She said, you know, you look really interesting. She's like, we are so far from production right now. I'm just trying to hire animators, which still didn't really fully exist as CG animators. I'm just trying to find talent. So I'll have to get back to you in probably 6 months. And for me, it was, I don't know what it was, that it was a godsend in terms of me, again, being open to opportunities, saying yes. I managed to say to her, well, I'm open for anything. I mean, do you need help hiring? And it was a light bulb moment for her where she said, she's like, I mean, are you interested in recruiting? And I was like, yes, sure. Yes, I am interested in recruiting. And she said, all right, come on down, let's meet. And you know, I met with her and we clicked, and next thing I knew, I was hired as a recruiter working for this company. I didn't have experience in CG. I didn't have experience, you know, but I did know production and I did know stop motion, and I was eager and I was open, and I, again, shown that I'm a team member, that I was reliable, I had good references, and I got the job. It was working with PDI just as Dreamworks was joining with them, and it was working as a recruiter on Antz and then eventually Shrek and their commercial division. So I was one of 3 recruiters, and I was thrown in. And I gotta say, for me, again, keeping myself open to opportunities, being open to something new, as soon as I started working in recruiting, that was my aha moment. And that was my, oh, this is totally what I want to do. And, you know, I didn't anticipate it, but this is the path, and it's going to curve and wind, and just keeping yourself open. So I worked PDI Dreamworks. When I started, we were about 50 people. By the time I left, we were over 500, 600 people. It was fast. It was furious. It was incredible. Totally thankful for that experience. The reason why I left was because I fell in love, which I didn't anticipate either. And you should always keep yourself open to love. And I moved to the East Coast. So at that point, you know, I had recruiting under my belt. I had CG animation. I had stop motion. I had feature work. I managed, again, through my connections, through my networking, to land a job working at MTV Animation, when MTV actually had a whole animation block. So they did Beavis and Butthead. They had Celebrity Deathmatch. They had Daria. They had Spy Groove. Hopefully these are familiar to you. I don't know. So, but then all of a sudden I was like, okay, new experience. I have the skills I'm applying, but I'm learning all about 2D. I'm learning about the series world. And I was on the East Coast, which was a different world unto itself. So I was working there for a long time. It was amazing, incredible artists. you know, MTV Animation at that time was the East Coast animation hub. So a lot of people graduated from SVA, they graduated from Pratt, RISD, they went, you know, into MTV Animation, and they were there for a really long time. That was Beavis and Butthead's rise. And one day they had a company-wide meeting and there were people in suits, bum, bum, which, you know, again, I was like, I have been here before. I've seen this. I think I know what's going to happen. And they were suits from Viacom, and they said, well, we've decided that we are going to replace all of MTV Animation programming with music videos, go back to our roots. So we are canceling everything, and all of the materials, everything is shipped off to a storage facility out in Ozone Park. So thanks for your service. Good luck. And, you know, at that time, there were people that were at MTV Animation that had been there since its infancy. And we're talking like incredible art directors, incredible storyboard artists, animators, but people who never thought that this was going to end. And part of my job at the time was to help kind of transition people out. So I was meeting with, you know, storyboard supervisors, art directors. And when I said, okay, let me see what you have, let me see your materials, let me see your portfolio, a lot of them didn't have anything. They didn't keep anything. This was, again, before like everything was fully digital. You know, storyboard frames, like paper, like copies, all that stuff had been shipped off to Ozone Park, so, and locked away. So nobody had access to their materials. And it was a reality check too, that you are artists first and foremost. Again, you're your own business. You need to always be keeping your work more or less up to date, because you never know when the right opportunity might come along, and this industry moves super fast and somebody says, oh my God, the perfect job is for you. You got to get your stuff in, but like this week. You don't want to have to start pulling all that stuff together. So really have your work, keep it on file, keep your work up to date. And it doesn't have to be perfectly polished, but you should always be collecting and always thinking about, does my website reflect my latest and greatest? Is my reel more or less 6 months up to date? Is my LinkedIn profile more or less up to date? Because again, especially now, we are looking at your work before we even contact you. So take pride, keep your stuff polished, you know, add new work. It doesn't have to be like a perfectly cut reel, but you should always be collecting those shots, and you know, kind of remembering, again, you are your own business and nobody is going to take care of that except for you. So a lot of those animators and artists from MTV Animation, it was a tough road for them to pull it all together. For me, I knew that there was a recruiting opportunity happening over at Nickelodeon, and I went over to Nickelodeon, one of the sister companies, and I was the recruiter for their East and West Coast divisions. So I was at Nick, it was Nick Digital, it was like their CG division. I was there, and I was always fielding calls from studios saying like, hey, we're working on this project, do you happen to know anybody? And I always love to hook people up. That's why I love doing what I do. I like to make those connections. At that time, you know, the industry was changing. There was a lot of off-the-shelf software. Everything didn't need to be proprietary anymore. People had the tools to be able to create with much smaller teams. It wasn't just the Disneys, it wasn't just the Pixars. There were smaller shops that were opening up and able to do really impressive work. And I started to think for myself, you know what? I was looking around and I was reading the industry and I was seeing what was happening. And I thought to myself, instead of me waiting for the company-wide meeting, instead of me just fielding these calls, I should, I need to pivot. And I decided to open I Spy Recruiting. And instead of just working for one, I could work for everybody. And it was a big leap of faith, but, I'm really glad I did it. And, I am my own studio, I'm my own company, and I also have to manage the business of me and of I Spy. So I've had I Spy now for close to 20 years, 18 years. And it's been going great. I also am always reading the room. I'm seeing what's coming up. Obviously like gaming, interactive, experiential, always kind of adding to my toolbox as well as to what I cover and to what services I provide for my clients. So that's a little bit about me, but again, I think some of the takeaways are, internships are really important. If you're able to acquire an internship or an apprentice, do it. It doesn't have to be the perfect opportunity. Just keeping yourself open, trying to find, a mentor along the way, maybe a couple mentors, not abusing their time, being really respectful of their time, and again, paying it forward. When the time comes, you'll have the opportunity to give insight and help guide somebody. And most importantly, treating yourself like your own business. As you move forward in this industry, stay interested, stay engaged, stay visible, keep your work more or less up to date, take pride in your work. And if you don't actively have a job to work on, that's a paid job, there's so many opportunities for you to always kind of be tweaking your like, oh, I've been wanting to move more into character design. Let me just do something. Let me just do a personal project. You should, you can have an Instagram account that is strictly your business side and just put up the latest and greatest. Keep cultivating, keep checking in with yourself. Are you on the path that you intended to, or do you want to make a slight shift? I meet with artists all the time who, like in motion design, they did a lot of After Effects work, but now see that there's a lot of Cinema 4D jobs. So start to pick up new tools. It only helps your craft in the long run. So just, do personal projects, or help somebody else on a project, or, maybe you have that short you've been wanting to work on. And take pride in your work, and know, most importantly, that people are out there. We're always looking. So, kind of keep it more or less up to date and professional. Start now. You have your professional website. You have your LinkedIn account, which is all the professional you. You have an Instagram account. And when you update one, kind of keep everything more or less up to date. Make sure that when make sure that everything connects 360. I know this sounds like a no-brainer, but there's plenty of times I'll see somebody on LinkedIn and it looks really interesting, and I can't find a link to their website, or from their website I can't find them on LinkedIn. But make sure that all the pieces connect, and that what we want, that we can find you, and when we do find you, it's the work that you want us to find. So that's kind of a little bit nutshell. Are there any? Oh, yay! Thank you, Jane. So, are there any? I'm happy to open it up to questions. And
before we go to questions, I actually have
yes.
one little anecdote that supports a lot of what you just said about keeping yourself open to opportunities and always
Mhm.
saying yes. A long time ago, I worked at a different art school, and somebody from the Gap approached us looking to hire some 3D animators to be able to model some of their, environments to showcase their products. And none of the animation students went with it, even though it was a perfect opportunity. It was not exactly what you wanted to do, but it's all the skills, and Gap's not going to go out of business, hopefully.
Right. Right.
And it's a perfect way to like leap into that. And like you've been saying, you never know where it's going to take you.
Absolutely. And really being able to think outside of the box, that's where the research comes in too. Like there are so many ways you can be employed. And I know we probably all got into this because it's like the sexy, like, oh, Pixar and oh, Disney. And this is, and that's your, that was kind of what, sparked your interest. But like you said, there's architectural, there's so many different ways, legal, pharmaceutical. I mean, everywhere, like your skills can be applied to a lot of different industries. And kind of remember that because, again, you're going to evolve and change and your needs are going to change. I mean, one day you might just kind of want that 9 to 5 job that, it, it it's not always going to be the sexy feature stuff, and there's trade-offs, and there's different ways that you can approach and your skills, and different ways that you can offer them. So be open to it, absolutely, and research and just keep your eyes open. Any questions? Somebody's got.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself or to throw some questions in the chat and we can read those out loud. Don't hold back, everybody.
I have a question.
Oh, good. Hi.
Hi. How do we apply to you? And then how is your outsourcing usually done? Like if someone has a particular interest in like a genre of work or a studio, like do you kind of like try to get them in that direction, or is it just like whatever comes the way?
That's a good question. Well, I'm not an agent, so I don't represent you. I'm not taking you and trying to like plug you. I'm not representing you, basically. I'm hired by the studios, and the studio actually pays my fee too. So the good thing is there's no fee to the artist in working with me. I'm, again, just another resource. So when you do apply to me, just like you do with any other place, be very specific as to what your skill set is, what your strengths are, what you want to do, where you want to go. I mean, for me, the more information, the better. This is how I get to know you. And then anytime I do have something that might be appropriate, I'll contact you. I never, ever, ever, ever release your materials without your consent. So know that I'll contact you first. And if it's something you want to pursue, a lot of the times, depending on what the job is, people might have time to like polish up their work or throw in a couple extra, character heavy pieces, whatever it may be. But that's how I work. And again, just like with any studio, I really encourage people to stay in touch with me. Every time you finish a project, every time, if you do a personal piece, that is the perfect opportunity for you to update your materials and then get back in touch with people and resubmit to studios. Do not send the same thing in over and over again, because we're going to assume that then you're not, we're going to see the same thing. We're going to say, oh, well, they haven't done anything new. But if you polish up your work, you put on some new pieces, it's a perfect opportunity to say like, hey, everybody, here's my latest and greatest. And I just finished a commercial spot. I'm available starting in December. And guess what? You go to the top of the list and you're on our forefront of our minds. So that's a great way to kind of really manage yourself as a business. In addition to that, do your homework, take those little extra steps to put yourself ahead of the pack. Don't just send out to me and every recruiter and every EP in town with everybody CC'd in the 2-line. And don't do that. The people that get ahead of the pack are the ones that take the time to customize it, take the time to think about, okay, I'm sending it into this studio. I've done my research. I'm going to show them how I fit in and how I complement and support what they do. Don't, you know, you're not going to send a heavy character piece into like a heavy VFX studio. You really take the time to customize a reel, take the time to like add additional pieces, take the time to, most importantly, find an inside connection. You're coming out of an amazing school. You have teachers, there's alumni. There are people, if you scratch the surface, you can find a 1st degree or a 2nd degree connection probably at any place you choose to apply to. But, you know, figure it out, do your homework, and then send it in through the traditional route, and then also get in touch with that person. Say like, hey, I'm really interested in the studio. I love, you know, the recent piece that they did, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, show that you have knowledge, interest, and the inside connection. And that puts you right to the top. So that's what's going to separate you from the pack. And especially now more than ever, you know, we're all virtual, we're all far away. You've got to make those connections. Other questions?
Hey, I have a question.
Hi. Yeah.
I'm Bruna. I'm speaking from Brazil here. It's
hi,
really
Bruna.
nice to get to know you.
You too.
Something that I wanted to ask you about is how these studios perceive different experiences that you may have in your curriculum, for instance, but they're not related to animation studios. So for instance, if you also work with something that is not related to art, but you can find like the core part in it that connects both of the things, do you think that that could be relevant?
Yes,
Like how
absolutely.
do you see this interdisciplinarity?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And especially now while you're building your portfolio, while you're getting out into the world, we love to see that. And I encourage you, you know, you're artists first and foremost. You got into this because you are artists first and foremost. So I love to see like, okay, somewhere even on your website, here's the photography work that you do, or here's some painting that I do. That just only makes you a better artist, and that makes you more interesting to us. So yes, if you have experience even working like in an art gallery, or if you're like a photographer on the weekends for weddings, whatever it may be, put it on there right now as you're starting to build your resume and portfolio, because that just shows to me that, you know, you're reliable. It shows to me that you can hold down a job. It shows to me that you're, you know, you're interested. So these are all aspects that build you. So definitely include that and make those connections.
Nice.
Does that answer you? Good.
Yeah, I think so. But also when you have experiences that are not related to art, for instance, like I have experience with accessibility. I can make a connection between that and the art that I make, but
Yep.
it's not obvious. Like typically it wouldn't be in a portfolio, and then I'm never sure whether I should highlight that or not.
Right. I mean, I think it's great to see. I mean, this is stuff, this is where like aspects like your cover letter, which is sort of your introduction email, like this is stuff that you should mention. This is what gives you your personality. This is stuff that makes you interesting. This is what stands out to me about you. So include that. You can also put that in the bio section of your website. So, but these are things that we want to get to know you and what makes you unique. I had somebody a while ago, he was a cop that became an animator, and that kind of became like his story, and he kind of wove that into like what he was about. He actually worked in 9/11 as a cop, And after 9/11, he said like it was this wake up call for him to move into animation and do something that gave him joy. And that was something that he had always kind of pushed aside. And that was something that he kind of used as like the intro about him. And he put it sort of in the bio part of his website. And, you know, it really gave another dimension to him as an artist. And I thought that that was, you know, a cop has nothing to do with an animator, but it does. And it showed like the human side of him, and it gave him a story. And I think that's really important too. Like figure out your story and what makes you unique and why you. So, you know, Bruna, like I'll remember that now when in the future. So figure out those little nuggets, those little pieces that make you unique. You know, that's why we're hiring you.
Nice. It's really nice to know that they
Yeah,
actually value that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, we have a question in the chat. I feel like the film and animation industry is so competitive. Do you have any advice on how to get noticed?
Yes, it is very competitive. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunities, again, sort of staying interested and engaged and really taking advantage of the network. And you might think you don't have a network, but this is already your network. You already have this community at CCA. You already have advisors and teachers and people that you can kind of tap into. So the more that you can make that personal connection, the better off you're going to be. So again, doing the research, knowing who you're applying to, and taking the time to personalize it, you're going to get that much closer to the job. And like personalize it, I mean, that's like minutes out of your day, but will stand out to the recruiter. That when I was at PDI Dreamworks, I was looking at like, you know, 400, like just reel after reel after reel after reel. And, you know, but the person that would stand out, that would say like, yeah, my teacher used to work at, you know, figuring out how you're connected to the job. That makes a big difference. And, you know, don't just send it out. I can tell when somebody's just sent the same thing to me and everybody else versus the person that took a few minutes and said, hey, I saw you speak at CCA. I really enjoyed your story, but like, tell me why, how you stand out. Scratching the surface, and that takes you so much closer to the job. And really figuring out how you fit into each studio and taking the time to customize it a little bit. You know, does the work that they do, is it really cartoony, or is it a heavy VFX? Or, you know, sometimes I can just tell when somebody just sends it out and I was like, you don't know anything about this company, or you don't, you know, you're just trying to get the job and seeing what sticks. But take the time. Those are the people that are going to kind of stand out. So I hope that answered what you're looking for. And again, keeping yourself open to opportunities that might not be the shiny, obvious Pixar's or Disney's. There's a lot of really interesting work out there. There's a lot of amazing commercial work, direct to brand, agency. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can start to get experience under your belt and eventually get to where you want to go. But it's the journey. And even while you're on the journey, you might find yourself moving into a different direction. So it's about saying yes and just keeping yourself open.
Do we have any more questions? All great stuff so far, guys. Do you have any advice for riggers finding a job and trying to stand out? Are they any different from animators?
No, this is a good question though, because I think, again, thinking about where you're particularly applying to makes a big difference. So if you're applying to like a big feature house, like a really big studio, they're going to want to see one thing and one thing only really well. But if you're applying to a smaller mom and pop shop, like a smaller studio that's only like 15 to 20 people that, you know, has a core staff, but then builds on freelancers, we're going to want to see like, yeah, you do one thing and that's your focus, but you can also do this, this, and this, because that makes you a little bit more employable to them. So that's where you're going to think about, okay, who am I sending it into? What's the size of the company? What do they want to see? And that's going to, you might customize. You're going to send something different into a smaller shop. For example, as a rigger, you know, I'd love to see some animation perhaps. Like you know, and you don't have to be perfect in it, but to show that you have a couple different hats, you have a couple different areas where you don't mind jumping in and being able to help out, then show me a generalist reel, or show me this is my primary, but these are my secondary skills, versus again, sending it into ILM or sending it into just a larger shop that's going to say like, you do rigging, that's it, 24/7, specifically rigging. And again, you're going to have different reels, and that can be available on your website as well. I mean, a lot of times people will show me, here's my lighting, and then here's my lighting, compositing, and tracking, or whatever it may be. So, you know, different studios are going to have different needs, and that's you doing your research and figuring that out beforehand. And in terms of a rigging reel, you know, and most of your reels, I like to see process. I like to see the before. I like to see the after. It doesn't all have to be perfectly polished, you know, in every area. I just want to see what your strength is. And, you know, again, if you only want to do animation and you don't want to do lighting and all of that other stuff, then just show me a stripped down, just animation. I don't look at the backgrounds. I won't look at the models. I won't look at any of that. I'll just look at your motion. And again, before and after rigging, show me the back end, show me the tools and the rig, and then show me the piece in action. So.
All right, we got another question for you. What stands out the most to companies, skills or the experience of the applicant?
Both. I mean, you know, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of the times, you know, I'll have candidates, like there's a 5-star person, but they have a reputation of being very difficult, versus like a 4-star person that's good, but also really great to work with. They're always going to go for the 4-star. So remember that your reputation precedes you. Remember that you are putting your professional self into the world. You could be the best damn animator out there, but if you show up late and you don't deliver on time and you're difficult and you complain and you really alienate yourself from the rest of the team, guess what? You're going to have trouble finding work, even if you're an amazing animator, versus that person that we can really rely on, that communicates well, that shows up on time, that delivers. And if they run into problems, they'll let us know before the due date. So those are all the soft skills that are also really important. So, you know, experience is important, and also, you know, definitely having the skills, but I think sort of if you can be well-rounded, that's what we like to see. And again, your reputation will precede you. You already have a network. You already are starting to build that. And be mindful of that. Put your best self forward. Put your best self out there. Once you have a bad reputation, it's really hard to get it back. So, you know, this is your business, and treat yourself as so. I mean, it's amazing. We work in a creative, casual industry, but that doesn't mean that you can be inappropriate. That doesn't mean that you can cross those boundaries. You know, manage yourself, be your best self. And remember that we're counting on you. At the end of the day, there's money on the line. There are projects on the line. Like, this is what we're all doing. So remember that.
All right. Well, as we start to wind down, does anybody have any last burning questions in the last few moments?
I have a question real quick.
Yes.
Hi, Josh, and hi, Ira. My name's
Hi.
Carl. I graduated May from CCA, and I just had a question about following up and maintaining connections. So I know studios and recruiters are exceptionally busy. There have been a few times where a connection has been made and an offer extended to me for an internship or similar related positions. Sometimes the opportunity falls through after a few weeks, despite follow-up emails or whatever method we were using to contact. Is there anything I can do to avoid these situations, or is this more an inevitability of making those connections in animation?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it does come down to timing. I mean, so remember that and try not to ever take it personally. It really does come down to timing with opportunities. But Carl, like, you've already made those connections, you already potentially have the internship. And even though the internship may fall through, as the world is crazy pants right now, you do have those connections. You're already halfway there. So first of all, definitely connect with anybody and everybody that you come in contact with through LinkedIn. Definitely, in your downtime, start to think about, start to figure out ways that you can add and update your portfolio so that then you can have that chance to send it back in and say, hey, we were in touch 6 months ago about the internship opportunity. I just finished this new project, or I've been working on my Cinema 4D skills. Here's my latest and greatest. And then just, check back in and stay visible. Don't just disappear on us, because, we'll remember you. We will. And it just takes a little time to make that relationship happen. But we do remember you. So, really using LinkedIn, staying up to date, checking in with people, and just kind of staying visible is really important. And attend conferences, attend meetups. Like, again, we're not face-to-face anymore, but SIGGRAPH, there's all these ways that you can still be out in the world and making those connections. So, and you never know what's around the corner. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry to butt in. I have one last question too that I just thought of.
Yeah.
So in my own research for like job hunting and everything, I had come across a article, and someone had mentioned proper etiquette on LinkedIn, and they had said, do not connect with anybody in the industry that you have not met personally, but you can follow them. Like, for example, don't ask for a connection from like a director at a studio. Just follow them, and then you can like comment on their post and interact that way, but you should not do a connection. It's just poor etiquette because you don't know them personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, again, LinkedIn too, that's a good point. Although I also feel like most people, we work in this industry where I think like most people are like good, like they're good people. Like, everybody's been in your shoes. And I like to think that most people, what's the harm in them accepting your connection? But take it one step further. Like, hey, I've always admired your work. That piece that you did with, like, show that you have knowledge. Like, it's like, I always say it's like dating 101. Like, take interest. Like, why me? What's special about me? And show that you understand. Don't just blanket it. That's, again, just like, ooh, the blind connection. Yeah, take the time. Like, hey, I noticed that you're CCA alumni and I'm just graduating. And, I remember your thesis piece. But, like, make those little connections, and that'll just be like, oh, that's cool. And, you've got to put yourself out there, but, jump through those hoops a little bit and do your research.
Okay, so it is appropriate to connect.
I think it is. If you, again, take the time to make it why them, why are they unique, not just because, oh, they're a director at Pixar. I mean, what? Do you have a connection? And trust me, if you scratch the surface and you do your homework, you get, again, you're coming out of a great school. You're in California. There, I mean, you just got to figure it out. And if you don't have a direct connection, again, just figure out something. Why them? What speaks to you? Is there like a particular shot that they worked on, or a particular character? I mean, just show that you're thinking and you admire them for what they've done. It makes a big difference. I'm about to sneeze. Hold on.
While Ila is recovering from her sneeze, I will actually kind of give my 2 cents on this too. Like, I had never met Ila before, and I was doing research on finding folks to speak for you guys during Recruiter Week. I never met her before, but I did research and we talked, and I told her why I thought she'd be a good fit, and she agreed to do it. So
Look, I'm here.
Yeah, there's no shame in like asking people if, again, it's not just blindly reaching out to them, because the worst thing somebody's ever going to say is no.
Right. Absolutely. But again, make those connections, do it. You know, I've had people contact me. They're like, oh, I was wondering if you could connect, you know, like this passive, like, you know, you jump through the hoops, like you close those loops because you're the one looking for the job. You're making that connection, and versus the one that's like, oh, I just was looking for a job. And I've had people contact me that clearly don't know what I do, or, you know, again, dating 101, show interest, show that you understand who they are, show you understand their work. It takes 5 minutes on your end and speaks miles. And find, you know, like, who's the recruiter? Like, find out a personal name, find a personal connection if you can. Send it through the traditional route, but then also like, oh, there's somebody that I had a class with freshman year that's working at X. Like, I'm going to get in touch with them, see if it's okay if I send along my portfolio because I saw a job posting. But just, it's about being visible and making those connections goes a long way.
All right. Well, we have gone over our time. Thank you very much for being cool with that. You're 3 hours ahead of us.
3 minutes. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, did you want to drop your company link into the chat real quick so that way people can go explore it and research you a little bit?
Yeah. So my company is I Spy Recruiting. So it's I Spy. So ispyrecruiting.com, and you can reach me through there, and make sure you mention that we spoke today. And you know, I'll keep you posted on any appropriate opportunities, but stay visible, stay in touch with me. Hopefully we'll have the opportunity to work together. And, you know, it's exciting. You are on this journey, and we work in an amazing industry. You are artists first and foremost, and remember that. Remember to tap into your craft. Remember to tap into like what got you excited about this in the first place. Don't lose the artist in you, because that's what's going to keep you. Is an intense industry, and there's intense deadlines and intense hours, but you've got to remember, like, every now and then check in with yourself. Like, are you on the path that you want to be doing? Are there different areas that you can explore? And stay interested and engaged. So, but thank you for your time today. Thanks for coming.
All right, everybody. A round of virtual applause for Ila. This was really great.
Thank you.
I actually love hearing about all those shows that you worked on, by the way. I knew most of them.
Oh, really? Check out Bump in the Night. It's very weird. But yeah, so, you know, thanks for coming today. I'm excited to see where you all go. So. All
right, everybody. You're free to roam the internet now.
Take care. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.